She's back. Creepy, just in time for Halloween. Hello, welcome back to your favorite podcast on the planet of the Earth. Welcome back to the Beacon Pit Podcast with me, your host, Diana. You guys, this is my first time doing a video recording in my office. And when I tell you the lighting ain't great, but that's all right. We're flexing, we're doing our thing. Anywho, welcome back. I hope you had such a good start to your fall. It's been a bajillion years since I've spoken to you, which is so sad. But I did have a pretty good pause month. And when I tell you that it flew by in lightning speed, it really did. Did I get everything done I wanted to? No, nope, definitely not. But I think that the biggest thing that I took away from that month, and it was really just the biggest thing I paused was the podcast. The biggest thing I took away was how real mental clutter is. And I knew that. I think we all know that. But it felt so good to take time and just check things off my to-do list that I don't normally give myself time to do, which looking back is it's just silly, And the mental clutter aspect that I am moving forward with after my pause month is just the idea that I need to and this is me telling you to enforce it to myself, as well as hopefully inspire you to do this if you need to do it too. But every single week, I think I need to carve out time for those quote unquote, put it on the back burner items at least once a week, because I honestly, I tell myself I'm doing that, and then I never do them. And I just find an excuse to not do them, or I'm like, oh, I don't have time. This stuff is more important, blah, 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 blah. And before you know it, you have a bajillion back burner items that are just taking up so much space in your brain, nagging at you, that you're stressed and you're stressed and you're a stressed out gal. So that's my takeaway, is that moving forward, I'm going to do like a what's the phrase? Non-negotiable. We need to take time to do the back burner items once a week, because then they'll actually get done. And then the mental clutter is no longer going to be as huge of a hefty thing as it was before, if that makes sense. Like, you have time for what you make time for, kind of a vibe is what I'm getting at. So I'm trying to make time for everything. And to be honest, I love waking up early. I think we know that. Like, I show you my morning routine at least 4 times a week, and I love it. So obviously I'm a morning person. I usually wake up around 6 or 6:30. My alarm goes off at 6. And I probably get out of bed around 6:30. And I used to be so good at alarm goes off and I'm out of bed. I don't know what it is, but the past year I have not been as good at that. So I think that's rule number 1 for me, is like, get out of bed as soon as the alarm goes off and start the morning routine early, work out earlier, have more time for the back burner items later in the day. And also another thing that I learned, and these are not like, I didn't learn these things. They just reinforced themselves to me with how true they are. But doing the things that take a lot of brain power first in the day, it's like, have you ever heard of the concept of swallowing the frog? It's like, you do the hardest thing first, and then you'll feel clearer later to do all of your less large items, I guess, if that makes sense. But obviously, a lot of what I do is creative, and it's not realistic for me to be creative from 9 to 5. And I've read a lot of books about like business and creativity and whatever. And they always say that creative work is not a 9 to 5. You can't expect it to be. And I do expect it to be, I expect it to be that way, but it's not. So for me, it's the morning time, and then block schedule in the afternoon or evening, whatever time, for those back burner items. So some of the things that we did, which I think I told you a few of these things, but anyways, I had a giant list of things, from personal to-dos, home to-dos, business to-dos, that I had just been keeping until later, and then later became a crisis. But a few things that I did. So, number one, when we were in Italy, we started making, we call them scrapbooks, but they're not scrapbooks. I would love to do an old school scrapbook, but I just don't know if I would truly take the time to do it well. And also, we have so many pictures from life that I don't think I'd be able to choose. My scrapbooks would be huge. So, we have been going to Artifact Uprising. We started this in Italy and making a book for every year. And I basically started to catch up on those. I only did one and a half, and I still have two and a half more to do. But it felt really good to finally do those because how cool someday on our media console, which hopefully someday is soon that I actually finish these things, we're going to have a little library of all of our life, and all of our favorite pictures are going to be in these books. And I just think it's so cool. And I don't want my photos to live in my phone anymore. Like, technology is amazing, but there's so many things that I just can't get behind anymore. And one of them is having my photos only live in my phone. Like, I want them out. I have my gallery wall that I made that are some of my favorite professional photos we have. And then I have my books where they're silly pictures that we did together, some professional pictures, just to remember like all of the little things that happened each year that are we're probably going to forget eventually, you know? So I did that. I did a lot of house projects. I keep going so back and forth to, well, not really. Like, it's more so, it's expensive to fully do your home if you don't have, like, before we moved here, we had furniture for a living room and a bedroom, and now we have a, how many bedrooms is this house? 3-bedroom house, with a sitting room. So, and like, I adore my house, but it's taking a minute to put together. So I've been so going back and forth as to just like spending the money to finish it, and also really, really taking our time. And there's a few things that, like, I'm not willing to just finish it to have it to be done. I want it to be exactly what we want, like, I want it to be homey. I want it to feel like us. I want it to be exactly what I have in mind. So on that end of the spectrum, I'm definitely going slower. But, anyways, the point of me telling you that is I've laid out for every room exactly what I want. And then as I'm looking for things, when I find the perfect wallpaper, color, table, whatever, then I'll get it. And I've kind of just decided that it's going slower than we expected, and I'm just going to let it be slow. So I did a lot of that, which felt so good. And then also, did a little bit of the revamp, like business wise, podcast wise, Instagram wise, that is maybe a bit boring for you to listen to. So I did a lot of that as well. And yeah, it felt really good to check off a lot of things on all my boxes. Another thing, let's do a full sharp right. We're turning subjects. I started watching Dancing with the Stars again. And my biggest question in life right now is, why did I ever stop? That show, when I turned that show on, my mouth, corner to corner, ear to ear, I'm smiling the whole time. I love that freaking show. And when it came out, I don't know if I started watching it the year it came out, but I know for a fact Dancing with the Stars, American Idol, and Survivor. I used to watch I used to watch with my mom every single night during the week on the school nights, and I loved it. And I just haven't watched I don't know if it like didn't get popular, if they didn't have good people on it. I don't know. But we finally started watching it again, and when I tell you I am so in love with Alona Mar, is that her last name? Mar? Her, Steven, the pommel horse guy, like, his joy just like it permeates through my TV and soaks into me. Okay, I keep calling him Dwayne Johnson. I don't know why I cannot remember his name. Dwight Howard, I think. I'm obsessed with him. They are so good. The girl from Disney who is an actress, I think, that's like already an amazing dancer. I love watching her. I'm just having so much fun watching that show. So if you need a feel good show, please go watch Dancing with the Stars. It's incredible. Like it's so fun. Even Tyler watch or is enjoying watching it. It's so good. Also, you guys will be so proud of me. I feel like I've said this a couple of times. So maybe I don't know, maybe you're annoyed of this. But anywho, we've spent time with friends. So, a little pat on the back for me right there. We're being social. We're doing it. We're going out and seeing the people. We have new neighbors. Our neighborhood is filling up, you guys. So yeah, it was a good little. I didn't even feel like it was a reset month, honestly. Like I felt like I was just focusing on other things, which sometimes you just need to do it, I guess. Also, we're turning left now, hard left, all the way to the left with a subject change. My neighbor is a massage therapist, except not really. I'm confused about what the title is. She used to work for a chiropractor. I think she's a masseuse. I don't know. But when we first met them, we had dinner with them and we were talking about, that people love to talk about. When you have a fighter pilot for a husband, they love to talk about it, and planes and trains and automobiles. And of course, we get into the idea that sometimes Tyler comes home looking left and he can't stop looking left. He's no longer looking straight because his neck is stuck, or his back has been really hurting him. I think I've told you guys he has thrown out his back a bajillion times. And I'm like, are you 85 or are you 30? Because you're acting like you're 85. And she was like, you know what? I think I could help you with that. And we were like, I don't know. He's a little fragile. So we went over there and she did this thing. It's called, what was it called? Muscle. Oh no, I don't remember what it was called. I've never heard of it before. But she basically, sorry, she basically, so there's the muscle that hurts. Like say the muscle in the middle of your back hurts. What's making it hurt, I'm totally explaining this wrong. I'm just trying to give you the gist. The reason it hurts is because the area where the muscle attaches to the bone is like messed up a little bit. So she did this thing, like his neck was hurting, obviously. She would push really hard on like this place in the middle of his back and then in the middle of his stomach and push really hard. And she did these series of movements. And when I tell you it was a miracle, it was miraculous. Tyler was suddenly a spunky 21-year-old spring chicken, no longer 85 years old. It was amazing, like fantastic. And it kind of came back, but she was saying that there's multiple areas that could be done for the same like point in your neck or your back. So he's going to go and do it again. But that was amazing. And I want to try. She said, like, she'll do me, of course, for sure. But that was incredible. So I'm going to figure out what it was actually called and let you know, because at this point, there's no value in me telling you this because I can't even tell you what you need to ask for. Muscle. I'll look for it. I will look for it. I promise. But it was so cool. So anyway, that I suppose is my little recap of the pause month that you didn't ask for, but I'm giving you anyways. So instead of doing a peek and pit of my week, I'm going to do a peek and pit of the last month because I think it's been a full month since we've chatted. So my peak of our pause month is vet ticks. Have I talked about this? I don't know. Have you heard of vet ticks before, you guys? Because if you haven't, you need to go right now. Actually, not right now. Keep listening to the episode, and then at the end, you can go type in your computer vetticks.com and you subscribe, because we have gone now about a full month ago. We went to the Diamondbacks game, the Arizona's professional baseball team. And do you want to know how many dollars we spent on our seats? $3 each. 3 trace. 1, 2, 3. Secondly, this past weekend we went to the Suns game, the Arizona basketball team. And do you want to know how many dollars we spent? $7 each. $7. 7. It was so stinking fun. This was one of the things, I think if you go back to our episode where I said Arizona Us Habit Stacking Edition, I think this is what we said was one of our goals is we wanted to do these types of things like professional sports games, comedy shows, concerts. We want to take advantage of all the things that are available for us here. And Vetix has been coming in clutch, let me tell you. But it's really quite funny because my sweet husband doesn't understand basketball at all. Do I? No. I feel like you got to put the ball in the hoop. There's 2 points or 3 points of obviously and all those things. You can't just hold the ball and run with it. But all the other rules, like we have no idea. And I kept being like, how many fouls can you get? And he looks at me like, why do you think I know that? Like we did not belong at this game at all, but we had so much fun. And I put it on my story, but I have to tell you again because I think it was hilarious. And I'm unsure if you're really going to think it was hilarious, but like I said, I thought it was hilarious. So naturally, we're sitting there. The game's about to start. Everyone's excited. It was literally jam-packed. Like it was full. We really didn't have many open seats around us, but anywho's. So they're introducing the starting lineup, and they've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the last player they introduce. And of course, his face is on the screen. And the entire stadium stands up and starts acting like, I don't know, it's Spider-Man himself up on the screen. And Tyler literally says, "Oh, that must be the fan favorite." Like, all right, let's watch him, number 35. And literally three minutes later, we were both like, yeah, okay, cool. So that's who everyone likes, hop on the bandwagon. That's the favorite. He's our favorite player. And a few minutes later, Tyler's like, "Oh, that was Kevin Durant." I Sorry? Excuse me? Since when? Number one. Let's rewind. Number one. Since when does Kevin Durant still play basketball? Is that mean to say? Is that rude? Because I swear, I think I knew who he was in like high school, which was unfortunately a very long time. Secondly, since when does Kevin Durant play for the Suns? Like I thought he played for like the Lakers, or that's like literally the only good basketball team that I know the name of. And when he said that's Kevin Durant, the way my world spun, and I was like, oh, so that's why we only spend $7 on these tickets because we have no idea what is going on. And I was crying. I was laughing so hard. It was so flipping funny. Like, oh, I wonder if anyone around us was like, oh, okay, fan favorite right there. I wonder who that is. It's Kevin Durant. You dummy, you idiot. It's Kevin Durant. Okay? Okay? So anyway, in case you didn't know, Kevin Durant does still play basketball, and he sure does play for the Suns. So cool. Anyway, peak of the week, month, Vetix, love. Do you see this hair? Like I need that gel stick, or should I just leave it like a slut strand? That's not cute either. Like I'm a happily married woman, so I'm gonna put that back there. Anyway, my pit of my pause month was not getting everything done. The way it drove me nuts and it ate me up inside, you guys, because I felt guilty not doing the podcast. I felt guilty not working on it every week. But I think it was a lesson that needed to be learned of like, okay, take this time off and get some things knocked off of that list so you can feel clear and like you have the space to move on. But it was just a good lesson of like, you really need to carve out time for literally everything. And I think it's just my personality. I've told you guys I'm quite type A, but I need to schedule out my day in a calendar. Otherwise, I'm never going to get things done. Like I need to wake up at 6 a.m. and get out of bed. So I have time to do my morning routine, and then I'm going to work out, and then I'm going to start the day. But then I need to carve in, okay, from 5 to 5:45, I'm doing my daily cleaning tasks. From 5:45 to 6:30, I am doing my back burner quote unquote items, whether it's the scrapbook, whether it's stuff for the house, whether it's like paying bills that we have gotten, or like whatever those things are. I need to literally put it in my calendar so that it gets done. Otherwise, I'm just gonna like push it off. You know what I mean? So yeah, my pit was just that. I thought I was going to be superwoman and get literally everything done, and that did not happen, but that's fine. You know, we're rolling with it. So yeah, also very glad to be back to the podcast. I have a lot of good topic ideas. I have a handful of guests that I'm going to reach out with. And you guys, you're my buddies. You're the listeners. You're the ones that I do this for. I have a handful of people that I want to have on the podcast, but it's funny because people say that they love guest episodes, and a lot of times those are not the ones that get listens. I feel like it's the fans of like the guest that listen, but the people who normally listen to this show, they don't like the guest episodes. So I'm being very selective with it, and also like yes, this is something that is a part of the career that I'm going down, but it's not like I don't want the reason I do this to be money. Like I want to do it because I want to help people. That's how I feel about everything with social media. Like, am I an influencer? Question mark. I don't know. Content creator for sure. But everything that I do, while I know it does make me money, and while I know it could make me a lot of money eventually, I don't want to do it for that reason. Like the reason that I'm doing it is because number one, I really enjoy doing it. I like to be creative. I like number two, I really love helping people. I think that's something that I've enjoyed for most of my life. And the reason I started doing all of this anyways was to help people and inspire them to live a better life, especially when it comes to the military lifestyle. And like when I started doing this, my Instagram started as a fitness account. It was an anonymous account. I didn't even say my name. It was all about fitness and food. And I, at that time, gained a lot of traction with it. And then I started my job as a CPA, and I no longer had 2 seconds to myself. So I kind of put it on pause. And then after that, realized I wanted to help people be their healthiest self and reach those goals. And I became a holistic health coach. And at that time, that's what my social media was about. It was all about my health coaching services. It was about nutrition. It was about fitness. It was about mindset and helping people do those things. And then, of course, when we moved to Italy, I had to stop doing all of those jobs. And could I have done it under the table back then? Probably, but I am a rule follower and I didn't want to get deported. So sue me, So I stopped doing it, which then it turned into a bit of a travel account because I just was posting what we were doing and things that were helping me when it came to military life and moving overseas. And then that gained traction and I got a really large military following, really large, LOL, not 500,000 followers, but I do have a few that I love and adore and love that you're here. And yeah, so that's kind of just how it's evolved. And it's always had the same, the same motive behind it of just helping people. And it's also gone with whatever stage in life that I'm currently at. So why did I start telling you this? I truly don't understand why I started telling you this. I think because I was talking about not getting everything done. Oh, I was talking about guests. So I have a vision for this podcast, and I know the episodes that people really love, and I know the episodes that people get a lot of value out of. And I'm trying to just focus on that because the way that you grow a podcast is by having guests. And if the guest isn't 100% aligned with topics that I want to go into, then I'm not going to do it. Like, am I motivated by money? Sure, as anyone is, but I'm not doing these things in order to just do anything, sell my soul for $1. Like, I'm not going to do that. So if that means growing really slowly or growing slower than I could if I had all of these guests on, that's fine with me. You know what I mean? So yeah, anyways, I'm excited about the direction that we're going with the podcast. I have some good ideas, and that's kind of my thought process when it comes to guests and everything. So anyway, did not plan on sharing that with you, but suppose I'm glad I did. Let's get into the topic of the day. So whenever I do a Q&A on Instagram, I at least once get this question, and I feel like I've answered it in a roundabout way in a handful of episodes, which I'll tell you in a second. But the question is, what advice do you have for a new pilot spouse? And or what advice do you have for a couple new to the pilot community? Or what advice do you have for a new military spouse? A lot of times it really is pilot related though. And I mean, that's my life. That's all I talk about. I don't know about, a Navy shipman. Is that what they're called? I don't even know. I don't know what the life with a Green Beret is about. So I don't talk about it. So I get a lot of people asking about pilot life specifically. But I think that what I'm going to talk about can be applied to military spouse, blanket period, not just to military or pilot spouse. So anyways, yeah, I've gotten this question a handful of times, and that is, what advice do you have for a spouse new to the military community, is the way I'm answering it right now. And if you haven't yet, episodes where I kind of talk about this in a roundabout way is number one, I have 2 episodes called The 5 Rules of a Military Wife. There's the first one, and then there's The 5 Rules of a Military Wife Part 2. And then we also have an episode, me and Tyler together, and I think it's titled, I'll link all of these in the show notes as well, but I think it's titled 5 Things That We Tell Ourselves Before We Got Married, or 5 Things We Tell Ourselves Before Marriage. And a handful of those lessons are military specific as well. So I definitely recommend listening to those after you listen to this one, because I think it'll kind of tie it all together from every angle that you could really look at this, because I truly have, I could talk about this topic for 17 hours, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm giving you 5 tips today, but with all of those other ones, you'll have another 15, and they're related, but yeah, I think that to get the full view, you should listen to those ones as well. And to be honest, when I talk about this stuff, looking back at myself when we first got married, I was very headstrong. Still am. And I really like that I like that about myself. But looking back, because I was so headstrong, I'm not quite sure I actually would have taken any of the advice that I'm about to say. I'd probably listen to it and take it with a grain of salt, which you should, obviously, filter everything for yourself. But I think that when it comes to a life path, sometimes I think I need to learn, I don't want to say the hard way, because it's not necessarily, well, it is a little bit hard, but I don't need to learn, not the hard way. I just need to live it first and experience it myself before I can digest it and then, put my own spin on it, take the lesson, and then adjust my life afterward, if that makes sense. And it brings me back to both, people love to say, you know what you signed up for when it comes to a military marriage. And while you do, that's true, you can't be like, oh, I had no idea I was going to move, or I had no idea that he was going to be gone all the time, or you do know those things. But the thing is, you don't know what it feels like to live that. So while sure, you know a few of the things you signed up for, you have no idea what you signed up for until you live it. And the same with my CPA job. I knew that there was a busy season, but I didn't know what it felt like to live that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's what I mean with just looking back at myself, however many years ago, 6 years ago, I probably would have listened, but not fully taken the advice until I lived it and was like, oh, she was right. You know what I mean? So, and this makes it sound bad. It's really not bad. It's not scary. What I mean is just that I had a plan for my life back then, and no one could stop me. And I think I've learned a lot especially throughout a military life, of the idea that my life is going to unfold the way that it's supposed to. and I need to just let that happen. And I wasn't willing to allow my life to unfold in a way that wasn't what I had already thought of in my brain, if that makes sense. Which leads me to my first tip, which is number one, learn to flex your go with the flow muscle. Be open to anything and everything, because the reality is there are so many possibilities in this lifestyle. Your possible assignments might seem straightforward. So, for example, for the F-16, if you want to go to a CAF base, that's uh, Japan, South Korea, South Carolina, Italy, Germany, and that's it. But then there's training bases, and then there's exchange programs, and there's specialization, there's WIC, there's test, there's all these different opportunities, some that you may know exist, and a lot that you have no idea that they exist. So the idea with this is to just be open to anything happening in your life in a good way. Be excited about the idea that there are so many possibilities. Like, if you think about it, did you always know that you were going to marry a fighter pilot? Or did you always know that you were going to marry someone in the military? Maybe some of you might have or wanted to or whatever, but I think most of the time the answer to that is no. I know for me, like, I absolutely not, like, literally never thought about it. I broke up with my boyfriend in college, and I was like, literally never going to follow a man ever in my life because I let him dictate everything that I did. And I didn't like that. And I broke up with him, and I was like, okay, I'm doing my life and I'm going to do what I want, and someone's going to fit into that. And then I started dating Tyler, and I was like, oh, so you're in the military? Okay, where are we going? What's next? Packing my bag, coming with ya. So anyway, the idea is that I didn't know that that was going to happen, but that's exactly what was supposed to happen in my life. I believe that life is unfolding for us in the exact way that it's supposed to, whether we're ready for it, whether we're mentally open for that or not. That's what's going to happen. And I think the more that you embrace that and just let it happen, the easier that that's going to be. So I think one of the biggest examples for this, or the biggest, most talked about topics, is PCSing or moving. I guess if you're new, you might not know what PCS means. Permanent change of station. It's like every time you move. So there are so many possibilities. And obviously you have ones that you really, really want. Maybe you have your top 3 choices. And then you have options that you really, really don't want, that are your bottom 3 choices. And Tyler and I, whenever we go through this season of life, we always come up with, or we talk through how we would make, if we got one of the ones that we really don't want, how would we make the most of that? What would we do that would make that feel amazing? And then that way, if something that we don't want happens, we still have something to look forward to. And obviously, I'm not saying don't let yourself be upset. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but let yourself be upset, be mad about it for a day or however long you need, but not too long, because then it's never going to stop. And get over it, move on. Decide how you're going to make it good for yourself and you're going to enjoy it, and then do that. Start putting in the work to make it good, if that makes sense. Number 2 is, I don't know why I feel congested. Like I'm not. But anyways, number 2. It can be easy to focus on the negative in this life, and it can be really easy to see everything that's hard. But for me, I think one of the biggest things this life has taught me is the fact that we get to choose to focus on everything that this life gives us, and choose to focus on everything that is great about this life. Because though there are a lot of things that are hard, and we'll get to that, because I think if I'm going to be talking to a new military spouse, you deserve to know the things that are hard, but you also deserve to know the things that are great and the things that make this so worth living, and a life that I am so grateful for. So I guess first, what's hard? You're going to move. Sometimes it's every 3 years. Sometimes it's in 1 year. Sometimes it's in 6 months. Sometimes it's in 9 months. Sometimes it's in a year and a half. We don't know. Again, number 1, go with the flow. Number 2, they're gone all the time. And for me, it's not, looking back, it wasn't, I mean, yes, of course I missed him, especially when it was longer periods of time. I missed him a lot. But I think for me, the anxiety that came with it was the hardest part. It was like, I don't think I'd ever really felt that type of anxiety in my whole life until that point. Um, Meaning, ejections happen. And so when that happens in your community for the first time, it's really scary. And that's something that you have to learn to deal with. Or watching the news turned into a whole new ball game for me that I decided I'm not doing that. I can't handle that. I'm not looking at that. And some people don't agree with that, but that's what worked for me. And in these moments, when you start to realize those things that can make you maybe a little more nervous than you would ever imagined, or things you've never quite talked about, lean on your other military spouse friends because they are the ones who understand it. They're the ones who, like, if you talk about this with friends or family who don't know what it feels like, they're not going to say the right thing. And that's not their fault because they don't know what it feels like and they don't know what you're going through. That's why I think it's so valuable to lean on the people going through the same thing. And also don't dwell on it. Like, don't let it take over your life, talk through it for a minute and then again, pick yourself back up. Okay, other things that are hard. Being away from family. I think for a while, especially, we lived in Italy during COVID and everything, and there was a lot of feelings of friends and family living life or living your old life without you. And that can feel a little sad and lonely at times. And that can be a tough thing to feel. Your career might not thrive the way you thought it would, but also it might. It could. We don't know. You'll see that a lot of these points that I'm saying are a reality, but they're also a not very much an amazing perspective, if I do say so myself, that you're going to feel sometimes. But then the point of this second tip is you can choose to see it like that for your entire military career, or you can realize you're seeing it that way. And then you can choose to look at it in a different way. And you can choose to look at everything this life is giving you. So for me, that's incredible friends. You make friends very quickly. I think you open up maybe quicker than quote unquote normal. So you get deep relatively quickly. Travel opportunities are incredible. And yes, I know I'm very lucky that we've had overseas assignments, which means that our overseas travel has been very, rich and opportunities I always dreamed of, but never knew how those were going to happen. I still think that you get those even if you never leave in America. I truly, truly do. Like, you might be driving distance from somewhere that you might have never been to before. Also, sure, you'll live in places that you never knew you would, and sometimes those are cool places and sometimes they're not. But both of them again are what you make of them. So a lot of times in this lifestyle, the quote unquote bad assignments that aren't necessarily a great place geographically to be, the community is so good that these are some people's favorite bases of their entire career. So that's where the perspective choice comes in. Um, Life experience. You live so much life in this lifestyle from different cultures, different areas of America, learning to do life with your spouse, learning to do life without your spouse, having a lot of really deep experiences with your friends, learning to be in charge of your perspective on your life, of your life experience, and learning more about yourself as you go through each of these new life experiences. And I also think you gain an appreciation for what freedom really means and what our military families go through, and you gain a new appreciation to be American. At least I did. So, for me, the biggest thing with all of this is truly trusting and believing that everything in your life is happening for you. Truly everything, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And I, deep in my soul, do believe that. So, when I had to stop my career that I was working so hard to build before we left for Italy when we first got married, I decided to trust, okay, that's not my life's purpose right now. And I'm going to shift and I'm going to go with the flow. Before we did that, I was a health coach. Like I said, I wrote a book. My business was taking off. My social media just started to take off. And then we weren't allowed at that time. This has recently changed. You weren't allowed to work if you moved to Italy. And so I just decided to let it go and ask what my life purpose was instead and be thankful for what was coming in my life instead of that, if that makes sense. And of course, I still wonder, what would have happened if I didn't stop doing those things at that time. But I don't really linger on those thoughts because deep in my soul, I know that's not what was meant for me. So why am I thinking about it? Why am I thinking, what if? Like, what if that never happened and I could have XYZ? Like, at this point, I don't care. I don't care anymore. That's not what I was supposed to do with my life. So great. I'm here instead, you know? Okay. Number 3, this is a quick one, but number 3, time is elusive. Do not rely on it. And what I mean by that is, and this was okay, when you go back and listen to the episode where we talk about marriage lessons we wish we knew, we talk about this. Tyler used to say, like, his brain just doesn't work the way that mine does. And I will ask him still to this day, what time do you think he'll be home? And he's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, cool, that's great. Give me a ballpark. Give me an hour and a half ballpark of when you think you're going to be home. Because what he doesn't understand is that when he tells me that, I adjust it because I know him and I know how this works. So if Tyler says, I'm going to be home at 6:30 today, I think, I'm like, cool, 7:30 it is. See you then. I automatically shift it. And this same goes for maybe it's a Finney flight. And he's like, all right, they land at 11, like come watch them. It's going to be 11:20 or 11:30. Might be 10:50, might be 11:45. It's a ballpark, okay? TDY is going to be 3 weeks long. Okay, maybe. I'll believe it when I see it. And you don't need to be like negative about it. Don't not in a complaining way. That's not me. That's not my vibe. Some people love that and that works for them, but that doesn't work for me. So if you're like me, it's not in a complaining way. It's oh, so he's supposed to leave on Wednesday? Sure, maybe. We'll see. It might be. And a lot of times it has been. Great. That's amazing. And then it comes to, oh, you're supposed to be home next week? Cool. Great. Hopefully. I hope so. And if it's not, then I'm going to figure it out. And if he was supposed to be home on Thursday, now he's not going to be home till Monday or Tuesday. And that's another weekend by myself because everyone else's husband came home, but mine didn't, which happens sometimes. I'm going shopping, because I deserve it. I'm going to go to the mall and I might get a thing or two. I might go to Sephora and get a lipstick that I don't need, or maybe I'm going to go on a day trip because my favorite coffee shop's an hour away and I'm just going to do it because I like it and it's fun. That's the perspective I like to have. But ultimately, the whole meaning of this tip is don't rely on a time. It's a ballpark, not a fact, Number 4, when you make a really good quality connection with a friend, nurture that. Rely on them, pour into them, be grateful for what you have while you have it. I think most people can say that there are certain times, and it's not necessarily just a base. It's kind of like the flow of people moving and whatever. Like you are going to have times where you feel your friendship cup is overflowing and it's so good and it's so rich and you feel so grateful to have these people around you. And then there's going to be some times where you don't necessarily feel you have those connections, and that's fine. But I think the biggest thing is realizing when you do have them and inviting those people over for dinner more or going on hikes with them or whatever it is, just making sure you spend the time with them. I think looking back when we were in New Mexico, we had such an incredible group of people. And I wish, and while we spent a lot of time with our friends. I wish I did more because those were amazing friends that a lot of them haven't been with. Some of them we have, and it's been awesome, but some of them we haven't. So just realizing when you have that, and that is such a gift. And that's one of my biggest blessings from living this life is meeting people that I'm like, oh my God, I feel like we're connected like at a soul level. And I never would have met you if I didn't live this military life. And sure, maybe we only had literally 6 months together, but you are truly one of my best friends that I am going to love and visit for the rest of my life. And I just think that that's something that not everyone gets to experience. I think it's also a huge blessing to have your friends from elementary school or high school or college or whatever. And I adore those friendships, of course, but a lot of people don't get those soul deep relationships later in life, and we do. So I think that's cool. And the last one, number 5, is to learn how to talk about hard things with your spouse. So I don't mean not just understand that those hard things are going to happen, but literally have conversations with your husband or wife or whatever of how you're going to deal with those things. So it's things like ejections, accidents happening, going through a really stressful move. Maybe he's going through a really hard period at work where he's working all the time or he's studying all the time and he's very stressed. Learn how to effectively communicate with each other about what each of you need from the other person and how you're going to get through those hard times so that you're working together, not, parallel or apart from each other. So be open with your spouse and encourage them to do this with you, and encourage them to do it for you just the same way you're doing it for them, and then actually show up for each other. So I know I say this all the time, but we love the marriage journal. Code Diana10 should get you 10% off still, at beating50%.com. It's called the Marriage Journal. So it is a Christian-based journal, but I think that it could help anyone. It gives you these standard questions to ask every week and every month, and it is incredible. We swear by it. So if you're looking for ways to do that, that's my favorite way. I will link it. It's linked in the show notes already, actually. And yeah, like I said, I have so many other things that I could say about this, but I think looking back at myself when we first started dating or got married, I think these are the overarching themes that I needed to drill in my head, knowing that I'm not going to fully take that advice, knowing that I need to live it first, but also trying to let them be a little louder in my mind, probably. So, yeah, those are my 5 tips. Value of the week. So, my value of the week this week is financial advice. Christmas is coming up, which is crazy. In a few months, 2 months, not even a few. And obviously, we're going to be spending a bit more money than usual because of gift giving and stuff. So, my tip to you is to check all of your credit cards' rewards perks and see if there's any stores that you might use that are offering a discount or cash back on any purchases, and make sure that you redeem the reward. Like American Express and Chase, some of the perks you don't automatically get. You have to go into your account and click that you want to get that perk. Don't forget, if you have the American Express Platinum card, you get $50 every 6 months. So use that. I already used that for gifts. They were just having Quince, I think it was $40 back for every $150 that you spent. So I'm going to link those cards in the show notes. So make sure that you do that because it's a huge tip that has worked for us when it comes to gift giving and saving some money or making your dollar stretch further. I think that's all I got for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that it was helpful and valuable. Like I said, make sure you go back and listen to those other episodes, but I'm so glad to be back on the podcast. And I got a lot of fun stuff coming up for you. So I love you so much. I hope you have such a fabulous day, and I will see you next Tuesday.